Miami, the market's on fire. To buy, to sell, to hold, takes you higher. With Zalewski and Hernandez, you know the sound. Ya tú sabes.
Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast. I'm Peter Zalewski, condo consultant, expert witness, founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. Joined here by my partner, my co-host, the moderator, Daniel Hernandez. He works over at Compass Real Estate in Coconut Grove. He does single-family houses and condos. Daniel, Monday, limited review of Fannie Mae mortgage applications. Se fue, gone, no mas. Get ready to take longer to get a mortgage on a condo. It's going to cost more and probably going to have a much higher rejection rate.
So what is this? What was the status quo, Pete? Limited
Status
review?
quo was if certain, and I'm not a mortgage expert, talk to somebody who does mortgages, but generally speaking, if some had gotten approved prior to, it was easier to kind of push it through in order to get financing. Remember, people in the mortgage industry, they make a point off of the loan application. So therefore, the more you can process, the more money you're going to make. Ultimately, it's a pain. I would put mortgage application processing up there with maybe doing a rental if you're in the real estate world. It's not something everybody wants to do, but if you can get some volume, it's good at it. Now suddenly, come Monday, it's getting complicated. Fannie Mae is changing a nationwide policy to reflect what's going on in Florida. So the Florida way is now going to be nationwide. So everybody up in Portland, Oregon, maybe you're in Seattle, maybe you're in Chicago, you're all going to have to do it Miami style now, or Florida style, I should say.
And then when does the 10 to 15% bump in the review and the reserves click in? That's at the beginning of next year, right?
Yep. January 1st, everybody, if you are in a condo and if your condo is going to be warrantable or basically investable for financing from Fannie Mae, who's the secondary buyer, you're going to have to set aside 15% in reserves. Therefore, everybody's condo maintenance fees are going up nationwide if they want to have buildings that are going to be financeable.
From what we've seen in the past, Peter, most buildings aren't even to the 10% threshold, are they?
No, they're not. But now that you're doing full reviews, it's probably going to start to get much more serious. Basically, the rubber's meeting the road. I think Fannie Mae's taking steps in anticipation of what they think is going to be a very challenging time next couple of years.
Very interesting. So watch out if you're buying a condo, folks. Need a good advisor. With that, this is Buy, Sell, Hold. And if you never watched this before, Peter and I throw some stories week after week after week. Thursday comes, Friday comes. We got to settle on 5 stories for you guys. And we're going to talk about them for 7 to 10 minutes each. We got you guys for an hour. Just something to listen to, something to watch before you start your weekend. It's hot out there, so find a bar with some air conditioning. Maybe put your linen shirt on, get a nice guayabera going. And at the end of each topic, we're either going to buy because we agree, we sell because we disagree, or we hold because we're just going to sit and wait and we need more information. And with that, Pete, Miami, we're number 1 again. I feel like we're number 1 in a lot of things. We are number 1 in the cost of living. And I'm not talking about absolute numbers. I'm talking about affordability, right? How much you spend on housing, how much you spend on your car, how much you spend on rent and insurance versus how much you make. Yes, New York is going to be more expensive when we're talking absolute numbers, folks. But when you're talking about salaries versus how much you're actually, putting out the door to live your life, Miami, number one.
We're number one. But what's interesting is the BBC, the Economist, they came out with a livability study. Yeah, a livability study. And they say we're nowhere close to being number 1. So this is kind of interesting to see how it plays out depending on whoever the source is. If you looked at I want to keep saying the BBC. If you looked at the Economist study, if you look at the Economist study, Miami's ranked number 8. Like Cayocho, number 8 in the United States for livability. Nation and worldwide, number 44. But we're number 1 based on this study in terms of what, affordability? Is that how they're referring to it?
Yeah, it's affordability. So they were drawing the numbers from 2019 to today. So back in 2019, the 35% of Miami households spent their income on housing. Today, that number I think is 40%, right? So that's a lot. But And then appreciation of properties have gone up 79%. Wages in the same period have only gone up 35%. Not to mention, we are the most expensive homeowners insurance market in the country. Second highest car insurance in the country. I forget who's number one. New York, shit, you don't even need a car, so there's that. You probably spend anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a year when you add up the maintenance and your lease and the tolls and your financing, yada yada. It's very expensive to live here. And we've talked about the whole idea of the bifurcated market. So meaning to buy. You got ultra wealthy over here, and then you got the people who don't really have much over here, and there's that missing middle. And Miami has a very large and exceedingly growing missing middle class. And so we talk about that a lot on the show. Some other things But
let me give it an asterisk, everybody. That's the asterisk. When I was a reporter, I used to talk to an economist called Charles Janaran. Charles Janaran was an economist down here. We've had multiple economists. And you know what Charles said at the time, Daniel?
What did he say?
You want to know what that economist said? He said when you're measuring the economic, let's call it, the GDP of Miami, what you need to realize, a lot of us play all cash. A lot of us are all cash, and therefore they're not able to count. Now, it was one thing during the 1980s where all the cocaine money was coming in. The Federal Reserve was getting all these bills, and they had to do something with it. And the concentration of greenbacks that were in the United States in the Federal Reserve Bank in Miami, out there in Dorazuela, that was one thing. But what this economist said, and it always sort of stuck with me, is that there's basically two sides to this economy. So you got the ones that are on the books, i.e. IRS. Then you have the other version that never kind of makes it. You ever walk into a restaurant and it says no credit cards accepted, no debit cards, you got to pay cash? That's kind of an idea. Because Solo's Pizza, they used to be like that, but now they're willing to take a credit card or willing to take a debit card. But they're Duffy's, the bar right there on Red Road, on the other side of the Gables, next to El Carajo. They used to be all cash. Now they do it. So if you want to get a tell as to what's really going on in the economy, look for a place that's only all cash.
Well, and I also want to point out that, we are actually also number one, and we led the state in domestic out-migration last year, Peter. So everybody's talking about the folks that are coming in, but we actually lost more people than are moving here. And the peak of people moving here was back in 2022 when Peter likes to say they allowed you to...
You didn't have to wear a mask thanks to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The big bad blue states, they mandated masks, and Governor DeSantis said no mask necessary. Also, too, Wall Street and Silicon Valley said you could work from home. And Miami Beach just wanted to put a cherry on top, and they said you could twerk on a police car on Ocean Drive. Those were the days.
Those were the days when 1,640 people were moving to Florida every single day. And now that's come down to 500 and change. But the interesting factoid here is that the people that are leaving, right? Then we have a surplus of out-migration versus the people coming in. Their salaries are somewhere around $87,000 a year, whereas the people that are moving here, although the numbers dropped, the people that are moving here, their salaries are about $178,000 a year. That's real money, folks. Some of the neighborhoods we're going to be talking about today have median household incomes of $35,000 a year. So 6X practically. Big bifurcated market. That's what we're talking about.
And that doesn't even factor in the immigration aspect. It doesn't factor in the guys jumping out of vans wearing masks, disappearing people. They can't send them to Alligator Alcatraz anymore. That supposedly is shut. But they're still out there. They are circulating. They're hunting for people. So we don't even know what the real numbers are going to be once they're able to go ahead and kind of gauge what our real population is.
So, Pete, I want to ask you then, how do we attract the best and the brightest down here if it's so expensive, but you're not making the salary and there's not the network? Like if you're coming out of school right now, why would you move to Miami? I mean, granted, a lot of people have family down here, and so that's a captive audience. But say you don't have really a dog in this fight, and you just want to better your career. What is going to draw you to Miami if the salaries up in New York are 2x? Why would you come here?
Well, again, going back to a conversation I had with somebody who worked for United Nations back in the day, I was talking to him about how people got positioned around the world when you worked for the United Nations. And what he was telling me, what multinationals always used to do is if it was a young couple that just got married, they never sent them to Miami because they were afraid somebody might go astray. They would typically send them to the more conservative type of market.
Des
Typically, you
Moines,
wanted a single
Iowa.
type of person. Yeah, exactly. So this is as confident as we like to be that everybody wants to be here, and the economists said no, they don't, because we're the eighth most livable city in the United States. We're the 44th nationwide. Miami doesn't necessarily play with everybody. You got to have a certain type of personality. You got to be kind of open-minded. You got to be willing to understand or at least listen to different music, whether it be on the radio or whatever you listen to, whether it's in the grocery store, whether it's anywhere. So there's not really a lot of selling points on Miami unless you're running and gunning, you're looking to YOLO. But these are kind of the cycles we go through. We were hot for a long time. Whether or not we able to maintain it, I don't know. Daniel, when I got to Miami in the 90s, I was like 4. When I came to Miami in the 90s, they were killing tourists. Your license plate, everybody, if you have a car, down at the bottom it says Sunshine State, or in certain counties it'll say "In God We Trust." They used to say rental. So what would happen is people would go into the airport. They get picked up on one of these buses, which now we have the Metro River Miami International Airport. They take them over the rental, all the rental car places, and robbers would follow the guys with the rental, and they would rob them. Some people got killed.
Wow.
German tourists got killed. English, Brits, they got killed. And that's why when you're driving on 95 or on the turnpike, you're going to see 24-hour security. They had to put that up there to kind of calm everybody. So I guess what I'm telling you is Miami goes through ebbs and it goes through flows, and we've been on a good run. The question is, though, where are we going to kind of go going forward, especially if you have these people coming down making, what'd you say, 180 grand, 160 grand a,
180
a
grand.
year? Okay, so you got the 180 grand going down
and
there.
not to mention like the tax savings. We got no tax here. So not only is it cheaper for them to live here, they're making the money, and then there's the added value of they're probably making an extra. If you're making 200 grand a year coming down from New York, it's probably representative of close to 20 or 30 or $40,000 to you in saved taxes. So they're happy to spend $3 grand a month on a rental because it's basically money that fell from the sky.
Yeah, but what also tends to fall from the sky. I mean, a big area right now is West Grove. Everybody loves West Grove. West Grove.
Hot.
Well, take yourself back 15, 20 years. That stretch on Grand Avenue from what's Cocoa Walk over to US 1. You would have all kinds of stuff going on over there. So I'm just saying, sometimes we get a little ahead of our skis. We don't really understand what the reality is of Miami. And whenever you have a great divide, I would say financially, those who have, they need to watch out, because those who don't, they're going to do whatever's necessary in order to pay their prescription bills, make sure their kids are safe, keep some sort of a roof over their head. Before, you used to be able to track the economy based on bank robberies. You knew when they were robbing banks that all of a sudden stuff was going sideways. I think everybody does digital now, so now there's probably hacking. But
it's phishing emails. Click on this UPS tracking link for this package you never ordered.
Yeah, so we kind of got to realize Miami, 55% foreign born. We are an area of transients, and when stuff starts to go sideways, it can get a little sketchy. I'm not putting everybody on notice or on warning, but when I see that bifurcation, I would be a little bit concerned, because the best thing the government can do is keep everybody kind of fat and happy, and therefore they're not going to go out and they're not going to commit violent crimes. They might be committing the white collar crimes like we were very good at here in Miami, whether it's healthcare fraud or anything else. But this is something that everybody needs to have in the back of their head. We go through cycles, and we've been on a really good run basically since a great recession.
I thought we were calling that an excursion, the Great Excursion, or the Great Skirmish.
The Great Skirmish, yeah, exactly. I mean, think about it, Daniel. Do you feel safe everywhere you go in Miami, right? You can even go into an area where back in the day,
everywhere I go, but yeah, generally I feel pretty freaking safe here.
Yeah, Wynwood. Take a look at Wynwood today. Well, you know what?
I'm not leaving my car in Wynwood overnight.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, even if you go into other places where people are up and coming neighborhoods, everybody's, they parachuted in, they think, everything is cool, whatever. Well, we haven't seen a downturn, and so it's something to keep on in mind, everybody. Listen, as long as everybody can feed themselves, keep a roof over their head, pay for their prescriptions, everything is rock and rolling. But when it starts to turn in this K economy, the capital K, with those who have getting a lot more and those who don't getting a lot less. That's when it starts to get sketchy. And that takes me back to when I got here, when they were murdering tourists because they needed to rob them. They needed to make some money. You also had the cocaine aspect of it. What was going on with Cocaine Cowboys, if you guys want to get a sense of that. Or there's a book about Willie and Sal, the two buddies who were in the drug business.
The Hotel Scarface book about the mutiny is also fantastic. I can recommend.
And Hotel Scarface is good. But listen, everybody, everybody's got to have money. You got to be able to pay for your health care. Otherwise, it gets sketchy from everybody all the way around. And that's not what we want down here in Miami.
Miami's number one for the cost of living. Buy, sell, hold.
I got to be hold on it. Just because of what Charles Janaran said, there's the IRS economy, and then there's the all cash economy in Miami.
Rico says it's all about the 3 B's. Beach, boat, and Bahamas. I think there's another B that we could probably replace out of that, but we'll talk to Rico about that later. I'm a buy. I like the data. It says so, and I live here, and I think it is very expensive to live here. Miami's precedent-setting reaction, or maybe non-reaction to the club. So we got porn shoots on balconies, sex in jacuzzis, 14 people in a studio. We got pot smoke everywhere. This isn't a frat. We're talking about the club, which has been dubbed by the Miami Herald. Somebody's got a dog with a bone over there at the Herald for the club at Brickell Bay. We've talked about this story probably like a month ago, but it's a 43-story condo tower right next to a $700 million assemblage put together by none other than our boy Ken Billions. So maybe the city of Miami doesn't really want to regulate this, but I bet you somebody in Ken Billions' camp is like, maybe this is a condo we should terminate too. So this building, it's an STR building, short-term rental, build to rent, BTR, STR. But fundamentally, it's an Airbnb building, meaning you can buy a unit in here and rent it out for a daily rate. There's no 90-day minimum, 6-month minimum. You buy it as an investment. It's like think about it like a hotel, but there are individual owners for every single little room, and you can manage it as you see fit. And this has become very, very popular. It's a 40 unit building, and all but about 100 of them are for Airbnb. And I found something interesting when I was reading about this, Peter. The board, so the HOA board, none of their board members, none of the executives on the board are actually homesteaded in that building. So
I'm sure, and that tends to be the case in a lot of these types of buildings.
Yeah, so you have sort of like these benevolent dictators who are ruling from afar on where you live. And I think, look, I know there's not a lot of teeth in the legislation here because the state passed a law that DeSantis signed a few years back that preempts any municipality from banning short-term rentals. But the condos have their own rules, and if the condo board, whether they live there or not, decides that, hey, we're going to allow short-term rentals here, then that is the law of the land. What I think is sort of crooked, though, is I'll put something forward. You shouldn't be on a condo board if you don't live in the building. You can own there, but why are you making decisions for the residents of the building if you don't, in fact, live there day in, day out? Because what do you care if the pool's open 24 hours a day or people can blast music 24 hours a day if you're not even there? I mean, I'm all for capitalism and free market and yada, yada, and rules are rules. So I know Peter's going to say, well, just don't buy in that building, but rules can also change, right?
Listen, this is an example of NIMBYism, if you ask me, because like you just said, they read the condo declaration. They should have. It's 300 pages. Nobody wants to go through it. But one of the reasons that building got put on the map, and just to remind everybody, Tibor Hollow put it up, Old Man Hollow. He's now passed, but he was a developer who's done quite a bit. He did over in the Omni area, put a lot of stuff on the board there. He did a project called the Panorama, which is right down the street, a couple of block or two down the street, just north of where the club is. But the whole sales pitch of this project was the fact that you had short-term rentals. And I told the story before, during the Great Recession, you'd go and show units in there and you'd open up the door and there would be a blow-up mattress and some clothes hanging because you had REO, real estate owned agents who were getting foreclosures from banks, and they were listing them. They weren't making money, so they were sleeping them or they were doing whatever they were doing. This has always been like the lifeblood. This is the DNA of this particular building. And for somebody to suddenly come in and say, wow, we don't want it. Well, the only thing I would push back and saying prices a lot of times in a building like this are based on the rent that it throws off. And if you're able to maximize rent because you're Airbnb-ing it for a porn shoot, an OnlyFan, a bachelor party, bachelorette party, whatever the case may be, if you get rid of this, so your valuations are going to go down, I would argue, because the quality of the building and the location of the building, while it looks good on a map, it does not have water. It's 20 years old or so, that particular building. It's real heavy and dense when you get inside of it. Probably one of the real sales feature besides the short-term rental is that you got a 7-Eleven downstairs. So you can just go to the 7-Eleven 24/7 and get whatever you need. And if you're into OnlyFans or anything like that, I'm sure they got all the, you can imagine what they have in there. So
you got a vending machine with like props. We'll call them props.
Props. Well, and two, during the Great Recession, it was one of the top 3 foreclosed buildings, entire state of Florida, including the Jade and the View or the View. Yep. Yeah, this building. And by the way, everybody, we dealt with this 15 years ago during the Great Recession. Everybody was doing this, and you know what the Condo Board Association did? They went to the city of Miami police. Does it sound familiar, like what we're hearing right now? And you know what the resolution was? Let's go ahead and require anybody coming into this building and others, you got to take a photograph. So they started taking photographs. So all of this is simply history repeating itself. The people who didn't know did not do their due diligence, and or they didn't use a good real estate advisor, because a real estate advisor would have told them that. These are newbies chasing a shiny object. Do I have sympathy for them? No. If you can't beat them, join them. Rent out your place, move somewhere else, and take advantage and capitalize on what is basically, what would you call it, hedonism 3, because the first 2 are in Jamaica.
So are you a buy on this? Because I wanted to put this in the rundown, because we talk a lot about the Central Business District and the sheer torrent of short-term rental buildings that are going to be coming online in and around the Central Business District over the next, 12 to 24 months. We're talking thousands and thousands of units that are basically selling the club at Brickell Bay's dream. People that the club at Brickell Bay is the slide in the marketing deck for all of these STR buildings in the Central Business District.
It's the OG. It is the OG.
And so I guess people are biting the bait on the hook, because those, from what I understand, at least in the pre-construction, those buildings are selling in droves and they're closing. I mean, 501 just came online in the Central Business District. That was sold out. You got, I think the Delano they're putting up is going to be STR friendly. All the 11 guys are STR friendly. 601, which is from the same group that put up 501, the Aria, the Gale, you got the Crosby, you got, is Okan Tower going to be an STR building? I know Flow House, which is basically entirely institutionally owned, STR building.
All of them, everything, that's all they are. I used to say, whenever you see a green space that's not a park, that is a condo development site, whenever you see a condo, it's a short-term rental. And by the way, so are the rental buildings. They're short-term rentals. And you say, well, how can they do it? Let me tell you how they do it, because I know some guys who did it. What you do is you put a place up on Airbnb, and the city and the building property managers, they're out there searching. So you do a bait and switch, which we would never do in Miami. You run an ad for a particular unit, and when somebody reaches, and you say you got to approve them, somebody reaches out, you say, you know what? I'm in negotiation with somebody, but I just happen to have another one that might be coming. Let me send you some pictures. And now, lo and behold, you've now skirted, got all around what's going on there. But at the end of the day, whatever rent you're generating, whether it's a individual, a couple who is renting monthly, or you got one-off Airbnb types, your valuation's based on your rent. It's as simple as that. If you want to go ahead and change the rules in that condo association and you want to become Broward County, Daniel, I don't know if you know this. You go into certain condos in Broward County, some of them, Boca Raton's another place too, in Palm Beach County, you have to own 2 years before you can turn around and rent it.
I've seen that.
Time. So this is not a new issue. The people complaining about this are the ones who just bought a car and then they realize, oh wow, this particular model is everywhere. They never noticed the car before until they purchased it, and then they realize that this is old. This is history repeating itself.
Miami's precedent-setting reaction to the club. Buy, sell, hold.
Precedent setting. I would be a sell.
You're a sell.
I think this is all. Yeah, these are just people suddenly discovered.
City of Miami hasn't really done anything about it, and that's why I guess why everybody's up in arms. What the City of Miami's come out and said is, hey, like, you want us to send inspectors out there? These are individually owned units. We need owner permission to enter the property. If there's nothing inherently wrong with the building itself, there's nothing they can really do because that's what the condo declaration says.
That's right. Well, I have heard, though, I will say, what I've heard building departments do is if a place goes up for sale, some of them are going ahead and they're looking at listings, whether it be on, Your Compass or it be on Zillow or wherever, Your Compass website or Zillow, and they'll go ahead and they'll take a look at the interior images, and if it doesn't necessarily match what they have on the books, then they're going out there to inspect and try to get access. Now the owner doesn't have to necessarily let them in, but this is something everybody should be aware of. So when you go ahead and you put up a listing, I've been told, because I know some guys who got jammed up doing this, they went ahead, they made some changes. I don't know if they got the permits or not, but the city building departments are becoming cognizant. So while maybe this isn't a formal go out there and create like a press scene, I'm sure the city of Miami definitely has it on its radar in terms of what's going on. But this is not new. City of Miami police were involved with this in 2008, 2009. That's where
but now we have a new player on the field. There's a special interest group named Airbnb that is directly incentivized to keep the party going on these things.
We need the party in Miami. Listen, you want family entertainment, you go to Orlando. You want adult entertainment and take that however you want, you come to Miami. Why would we possibly try to pull, let the air out on this particular, industry we have here? It doesn't make any sense.
I'm a hold. I want to wait and see what happens. Where are you at? You're a sell on this?
Yeah, I would be a sell. I'll tell you what's going to happen. Nothing. The people who are bitching and moaning, they're going to come to the realization you can't fight the Fed. You either join in or you sell and you get the hell out, is what I would tell you. Nothing is coming of this. Nothing. And by the way, another project, if anybody's interested in the short-term rentals, is the 4 ambassadors. 4 ambassadors, nobody's bitching and moaning there because they're all doing the same thing. They bought the units, they rent them.
Tell me that's not a termination candidate if you ever saw one.
Oh, it's a perfect car, and the price point on the way in is so cheap, right up the street. So, but they're not bitching and moaning the 4 ambassadors. You know why? They're not living there. The people who are living there are the ones who are basically creating all of the havoc. And listen, this is to the president of the Condo Association of the club at Brickell Bay. What you ought to do is go and rent out your place and go rent somewhere else where some owner overpaid in 2021, 2022, 2023 when you could twerk on a police car in Miami Beach. Live in that other place, have the landlord subsidize you, and collect the money from the particular unit you have. You're not going to beat the Fed. Do not fight the Fed. Simply, I'm saying this is the way that the current's going. There's no sense of trying to swim against it.
You heard it from Peter first. Well, lagoons are the new golf courses. And Peter, have you been up to Sole Mia?
I have, and it's it's probably the nicest pool I've ever seen on a landfill in my life.
On a landfill, it was a super fun site way back in the day. So for 100 years, guys, if you were building a fancy community, you built a golf course, right? Now you dig one of these. And I want to talk about it today because the preemptive company that's building all of these, and this isn't just in Florida, Peter, this is in Texas, Arizona, they built one in South America. This is, you can't really tell from the bird's eye view here, but this is a nearly 10-acre pool, effectively. And it uses less water than a golf course because there's no grass to water. It doesn't use the chemicals that a pool would use, and then they just fill it once, and then they refill it every so often to offset the evaporation. But I wanted to talk about it because the folks who built these things, Crystal Lagoons, they're based in Coral Gables, man. Talk about
nice.
a homegrown Miami company making it big. And so the guy who heads up this company, he has over 2,000 patents on this technology. I mean, I guess it's a little more complicated than just getting a few backhoes and digging a hole in the ground. But they've built this. They've built them. This was the first one down here in Miami. They have a few other projects throughout Florida. But to the cost of an HOA, so Solamia, folks, if you haven't been watching us for a while, Solamia is it's a JV, built by a JV. It's a master plan community. It's a group called Oleta Partners, and that's a JV between the Lafrac organization, Richard Lafrac up there in New York, and Jackie Sofer's Turnberry. They just put up, you can't see it in the view there, but you see that dark dirt on the bottom right. Well, that's Turnberry 1 that's already built. She's clearing land to build her second condo project there. I think they sold at a blend of around $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 a foot. And then there's a bunch of multifamily around there, Peter. So they put it in a UM medical center, they put it in a charter school. So they built this little master planned community, and it's all around this lagoon. And they put the fake sand and the fake beach. And it's interesting to me because anybody who's against it is like, well, why don't you just go to the beach? Because, yeah, in fact, the beach, Aventura and Sunny Isles, is like a stone's throw away from this place. So if they can be successful selling condos with this thing as sort of the centerpiece, it seems like to me that Crystal Lagoons can pretty much replicate this model anywhere. Because they're selling the waterfront dream. Tell me.
You know what they should have been called, though? President Trump, what the hell were you thinking? You hired some guy who didn't know how to resurface the reflection pool. You should have got these boys. Yeah, these guys would have done a much better job. Listen, I've been past this lagoon many times when I go to Costco. There's a Warren Henry Jaguar dealership up right there. FIU's North Campus is there. When you go past this thing, it catches your eye. This is a shiny object we're always talking about in Miami. Spectacular job. It always looks good, and it doesn't have the algae. President Trump, you made a mistake. Next time you got your sons looking around for dirt for a presidential library, have them looking at swimming pools, because the guys you hired, it went to shit up in D.C. Sorry to interrupt, Daniel.
No, not in the slightest. So I wanted to put this up against the whole idea of putting the golf courses, because, right, golf, Florida, it's where all the golf courses are. I don't play golf. I don't think you play golf. Do you play golf? So
no, I hate it. You need too much patience.
It's a 6-hour time suck, and yeah, I don't have the anger management or the patience to put through up with 6 hours. Besides, we work too hard. But golf courses boomed, from my research, between 1986 and 2005. Right, so they were just building more and more and more and more of these things. They opened 4,000 golf courses nationally in that period of time. But in the last 2 decades, the playing population, the young ones, you know how the tobacco companies like to get young people hooked on cigarettes? Well, like the golf community likes to get young people hooked on golf. Well, the growth slowed substantially over the last 2 decades because, you know, it's got this sort of like stuffy, snooty, image, I guess you could say. It's very expensive. It's
also expensive.
It's expensive and it's a time suck. So this whole lagoon thing, in terms of getting a developer to pay for this amenity, it's cheaper to run. It's cheaper for the HOAs. It has a larger total addressable market. This is a very family-friendly amenity, and it looks pretty. And you don't have to resurface it how they have to resurface golf course every so often. So I applaud this organization for doing this. I applaud Jackie and her partner Richie Lafrac for getting these guys to do this here, because I think it looks really nice. And by the way, if you don't want to live in Brickell, or you don't have to go into the armpit of downtown for work, you don't have to spend the $2,000 a square foot at the Waldorf Astoria. You can get something from a reputable builder like Jackie Sofer right here with this cool lagoon, and it's not going to cost you $2,000 a foot. It might cost you $1,200 a foot, or she's probably doing the second tower at $1,500 a foot. But I'm a fan of this. I hope they keep on building more of them. Hey, I don't think you will see very much more of them built here in Dade County, just because dirt's so freaking expensive. I don't see 10 acres being set aside for a pool effectively, but I like their local company.
Well, I think and Daniel, you said Crystal, what's called Crystal Lagoons?
Crystal Lagoons, the name of the company. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that they actually did this one at Solamia.
Correct.
Yeah, so just to give everybody a little context, the location of this place, again, like Daniel mentioned and I referenced, this was a super fun site. This is where you used to just dump stuff. City of North Miami, I think it is. It's North Miami, North Miami Beach. Neither of them's on the sand, but they're like right next to each other. They're always getting confused. City of North Miami owns it, and they went ahead and cut a deal with a group called Boca Developers. And Boca Developers put up 2 towers in there, and then they did like they always do in Tampa. They say in Tampa, tits up. The thing went sideways. Then downstream, Lafrec comes in. Richard Lafrec comes in and brings in the SOFRs. Now they need to reposition it because everybody locally knows that it was a Superfund site. So they start to do a whole variety of things. And really one of the anchors, I would say, in terms of creating reputation is, in fact, this lagoon. It is just spectacular. You see it and you're just like, wow, you almost want to drive by it and check it out. And then they built a series of mid-rises around there.
They put a
now they're following
pickleball
up with
court
condos.
in the middle of the freaking thing. I don't play pickleball
Wow,
either.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
They're
So-
really pulling out all the stops to make this thing look cool.
No, it looks absolutely spectacular. What they need to do, though, Jackie, what you need to do, and Old Man Lafrec, you guys need to reach out to the boys and girls over at the Flamingo that do the Sunday pool party where they get the strippers, the bartenders, everybody else, and then you drive a
Entrepreneurs, they're
Sunday pool
entrepreneurs.
party. Yeah, and then
Don't
you
call
can
it
get
a
the big
cabaret.
rents then you can get the rents that the Flamingo was getting because your product is far superior to that old shithole, which is a Flamingo, other than the building in the center. That's the last thing they're missing because every time I go past the pool, nobody is there. But I tend to go during a week. But that's the next thing. Just turn it in, or I'll tell you what, link up with Avra Jane, who's got the factory. She's a developer. She also got the factory out in Hialeah doing all of the ultra-related type of music. Have her put on a party there and go back and forth. And now, all of a sudden, you're going to get some real rents going while people are stopping off at the Costco to get the $1.50 hot dog and soda.
Buy, sell, hold. Lagoons are the new golf course.
Ooh, I would be a sell because I think golf courses are future development sites. Maybe they can redevelop these lagoons. No, I would be a sell that they're going to replace golf courses.
The legislation for the defunct golf courses, like we're seeing down out in Kendall, right?
Yeah,
Don't let your golf course fall into disrepair, guys. Somebody's going to come and backhoe it and turn it into a soccer stadium.
Well, well, Daniel, I heard an interesting thing. Somebody proposed because they're looking for space for data centers. Why don't they take these golf courses, build data centers there? The space is already available, right?
Ooh, not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. Lagoons are the new golf courses. You're a sell. I talked a big game, but I'm a sell. I like it. I don't think they're going to replace golf courses.
But golf courses will be replaced. And they'll probably be replaced with condo buildings.
Blight Club Alapata. So the first rule about Blight Club is that you complain enough and somebody opens up a CRA for you. A CRA is a community redevelopment agency, guys. And so when a neighborhood, a zone, an identified geography becomes so out of whack and ugly, you go over to your municipal administrators and you say, hey, we want you to create a community redevelopment agency. And a community redevelopment agency is just, is it a bond, Peter? Is that, I think it's a little more complex than just putting a bond out there, right?
No, well, I mean, the way I've seen it, it's like a taxing district. You know how you got the DDA, Miami Downtown Development Authority, and everybody within that certain jurisdiction, they're paying an extra taxes going in there, and it's giving them the ability to do stuff. That's the way I've always seen the CRA. And keep in mind, like banks, when they do financing, they have to allocate a certain amount of cash for community reinvestment just to make sure that there's that they're lending to everybody and it's not necessarily leaning one way, i.e. redlining and stuff like that. So that's the way I've always seen it done.
So we're talking about this because this week, the City of Miami approved a $243 million plan to reinvigorate and invest in a neighborhood called Alapata. Whenever you don't know how to spell these obscure names in the state of Florida, just add a consonant wherever you think it fits. Tallahassee, Alapata, Okeechobee. Just add the consonant and you're probably going to wind up spelling it right. So this $243 million plan, and by the way, this is just west of, as you can see there on the map, west of I-95, and then the western end of this is, what is that, 27th Avenue?
It's 27th, yeah, that's what it looks
27th. And so it's roughly 3.5 square miles. And it's a warehousing district, a historic warehousing district. There in the southeast corner, you can see the Medical Center. There's a lot of redevelopment going in there. You have the Rubels, who moved their giant art gallery down from Wynwood into here several years ago. And then you have a woman named Lisette Calderon, who is sort of the godmother of development of this entire district. On the heels of the CRA news, she actually announced a $175 million development fund, and she plans, apparently, to spend it all in here. And since I had some questions of how the CRA is done, I was looking around, and whenever I can't understand something, I try to have it explained to me as if I were a golden retriever, right? Like as if I was 5 years old. And this is what I came up with. So imagine your neighborhood, Peter's like a lemonade stand that makes money from selling lemons, and that's taxes to help the city. And right now, the lemonade stand, Allapattah, it's a bit broken, and it only brings in 5 lemons a year, say. The city needs a way to make more lemons to fix the roads and build a cool new playground, but nobody wants to open up a new shop there because it looks like shit. So here's where TIF comes in. That's tax increment financing. So what we do is that we freeze the lemons, we freeze the taxes for the next X number of years, let's say 20 years, and the schools and the police and all those essential services will still get their 5 lemons from that area. Nothing changes for them. And then the city borrows some money to fix up the neighborhood. They pave the streets. They put in the nice lights. And now, because the area looks so nice, people start to build big, beautiful new stores. They gentrify, which is a naughty word, right? And these new stores are huge. So they pay now 15 lemons in taxes. The first 5 lemons goes to the schools, but those 10 extra lemons go straight into the special piggy bank to pay back the money used to fix the streets and build the playground. So years later, when the piggy bank is full and the debt's all paid, the schools and the police and all those services now get 15 lemons a year. So the tide kind of rises all boats. But there's a caveat. Not everybody's thrilled about this. Because one, what happens if the public schools and services need more money? That tax rate is frozen. That baseline tax is frozen. And so if they run out of money, or if our administrators misspend the money, which they have a wonderful reputation of doing, the regular taxpayers outside of the CRA have to pony up. Their taxes are going to go up because they can't raise the taxes in the CRA because those taxes are frozen, right? And then the gentrification, which is effectively a nice word for saying you're going to displace residents, invariably will happen as property values go up, which that's the whole point of this, is to raise property values. But who likes this? It's going to create jobs, construction work, the future tax revenues from this. You know, the city wants to raise tax revenue because, well, that's what goes into the government coffers here. The city governments are going to like it because they can go out there and campaign on the fact that they did this for this neighborhood. And then, of course, the property developers. But I want to defer to Peter because he's been here for a minute. This is a new CRA, but there's been a CRA that is in the spotlight that's been around for many, many, many years. How has the Overtown CRA, Peter, played out? Has it played out as expected? Or is that a cautionary tale for what Allapattah's CRA should be looking forward to?
Well, I would almost say if you're hearing about a CRA, that basically means the end of the way the place used to be. And everybody should understand this area. We talked about it last week. I think it was last week, Daniel. You had 2 trains coming into Miami. You had the bougie train, which was Henry Flagler's train, which ran right down effectively where the Brightline's running, right next to Biscayne Boulevard or Federal Highway if you're up in Broward and Palm Beach County. Then you had the cheaper train, which was called Seaboard Airline Rail. Even though it was all train, air wasn't part of it. I guess it's like it's floating on air. And it came in through the west, and it dumped off. Its main terminal dumped off right over there in the Allapattah and also Wynwood. And anybody remembers where the Miami Stadium was? Right there, Miami Stadium was right across from the main passenger terminal. So where I'm kind of going with this is this whole area was laid out to be industrial. As a result, the way the roads run, and there's dead ends everywhere because you had a big train terminal, if you will, and where they kept the carriages and their locomotives and all that type of stuff. So the area is very difficult to navigate in and out and in and out. And there's still train tracks that are, some of them are still in place. I don't know if they're still used, but it's got a real heavy industrial type of use, almost like Wynwood. I would say Wynwood was a little bit more polished than what you're going to find in Allapattah. But here's the other thing about Allapattah. It's basically little Santo Domingo. This is a big Dominican concentration, Dominican restaurants, Dominican stuff. They have a Dominican Independence Day festival over there, Daniel. I went either last year or the year prior over in the middle of the park there, which name escapes me at the time. I'll get back to you on it. But basically, it sounds like this is all going, it's all going to change pretty dramatically in terms of who the – yeah, and also, too, and just to give everybody context, if you go a little bit farther north, Daniel, and what you're looking at, you're ultimately going to run into the 112, which is the Airport Expressway. Just on the other side of the Airport Expressway is Liberty City. Give you guys context. And also, too, just to the west of this area is an African-American going way back in the day type of community. So this is an area that's been overlooked for quite some time. It looks good on the map. While you're there, it can be kind of hard to navigate. There's really no public transportation. You're hemmed in by the river. You got the 112 to the north. It could get challenging. Anybody like Burger King, the original Burger King locations on 36th Street, just farther west of it. So a lot of history in and around here. If you guys like conch, there's a seafood joint over there called the Plaza. It's kind of like a Casola's, but for seafood. And there's also a place called Conktown, USA, if you want to pick that up there. I love the area. It is fantastic. It's probably going to go, though, with a CRA. And as it gets put on the map, and there's incentives for developers to come in there. So, Lisette, she's definitely putting her fingerprints on this area. But, we'll kind of see how it plays out. But I don't know. I don't know if I personally would go in there because of traffic, the congestion, the lack of infrastructure.
That's sort of the whole point of the CRA, right? Is to fix all these things. When I was looking at it, there's some very strict requirements, and there aren't a lot of hurdles you have to overcome to establish a CRA. So there's effectively a document, right? It's a rubric with 15 things, and if this given geography hits 2 of these things, by statute, they can consider it blighted and then create a CRA. And the list of 15 things, we can publish it later, Peter. I'll send it to you so you can put it on Substack. But it's things like stagnant rents, potholes. They probably don't have stagnant rents because they're Wynwood adjacent. I think the tide has risen all boats, so the rents have probably gone up in Allapattah in kind with everybody else. But there's certain things like if there's too low density of large assemblages, so like if there's 1,000 little 2,000 square foot warehouses, that's a thing in the rubric that they can cite to establish a CRA, because they want more cohesive development and they want more thoughtful movement and building. And hey, you know who's probably all over this? We should reach out to that guy we had on the pod back in February, the affordable housing guy. That'd be an interesting guy to talk to about this.
And everybody too, if you remember Wynwood back in the day, there was kind of a fashion. Yeah, there was kind of a fashion district right over there by Austin Park. Yeah. So if you want to get a glimpse of what we're talking about, go over to 20th. Go to 20th Street and just drive from the river. You could go to Miami Casino and drive all the way to Wynwood, and you guys will see all these little retailers that are all selling either in bulk or wholesale retail type of stuff. I'm sure it's all knockoffs, perfumes and shoes, and you kind of name it, just to get an idea. But it really reminds you a lot of Wynwood, say early 2000s is what I would say, this particular area.
Blight Club Allapattah, you buying it? Are you talking about it? You can't talk about Blight Club. The first rule about Blight Club is that you can't talk about Blight Club.
I got to be a hold because I never saw Allapattah as blight. I've had a buddy who's lived there for 20 years because he was trying to get off the radar. And he's always lived over there. So I've been going there. That used to be the bail bondsman district too, everybody, for what it's worth. That's where, because there was a courthouse right over there, or it still is. So I never really saw it as blight because I've always gone into the restaurants, the bars, the other stuff there. So to me, it's not blight. So I'd have to be a hold simply on the name Blight Club. I never thought it was blighted. I think this might be a little bit of they're taking some liberties, if you will, calling it blighted.
I put that on the rundown. I'm buying it. You're holding, I'm buying. I love the color on the board. See, we don't always agree on things. Peter and I aren't always on the same page, but I think we're going to agree on this one. Seating disharmony on Fisher Island. This rundown topic, disharmonies in quotes there because, Peter, there is a disharmony clause in the homeowners association rules and regulations on Fisher Island.
Is that like the dating app? Is that like the dating
Yeah,
app? Harmony?
it's like the
Harmony.
D-harmony. So, and by the way, look, I'm not going to assume everybody's seen the show, so I'm going to do a quick little context check on Fisher Island because we've talked about it quite a bit, and I'm going to pull it up on the map for the gang. So Fisher Island, wealthiest zip code in America. I think the median income there is like $2.5 million, so quite a bit. And that little red square there, a little red rectangle, are the fuel tanks, 28 million gallons worth, that power Port Miami. And they were privately owned for 100 years. The county had every opportunity, decade after decade after decade, to buy it. They didn't. It traded a few years ago to a JV that's called HRP. It's a JV from some group out of Chicago. It includes, by the way, Related Group and Russell Galbit's group. So they bought this for $180 million. They want to tear it down and make luxury condos. Fantastic. That's what we do here in Miami. We make luxury condos. Problem is that there's nowhere to put these fuel tanks. $61 billion a year is what Port Miami does for this city. 300-something thousand jobs are involved, 8.5 million cruise passengers, and I haven't even talked about the cargo or the people that work on the cruise ships. So these fuel not just the ships, but they are literally fueling an economic engine down here in Miami. Fisher Island Community Association doesn't really give a shit. They don't like them there. They don't like them next to their $30 million mansions. They don't like them next to their school. I get it, guys, but they need this. The county needs this. So they put Jimmy Morales, he was the CEO of the county until he resigned in disgrace, or maybe gracefully, it's subjective. But he resigned a few months ago because he didn't like that Daniel Levine Cava rejected his negotiated $400 million purchase of this thing that was just purchased for $180 million a few years ago. He said that the port and the cruise ship and the cargo lines were going to pay for it, but the money's got to come from somewhere. It would certainly ultimately come, or the allocated money could have gone somewhere else. It wouldn't be going to buy this thing. Why are we talking about this again today? I feel like I'm beating a dead horse over here because not everyone in the Fisher Island Community Association, if you're an owner on Fisher Island, you're a part of this association, well, not everybody's really happy about all these lawsuits. And when you have litigation, as I understand it, I'm not a lawyer, Peter's not a lawyer, you have discovery. And what discovery does is that it puts all of everybody's naughty laundry out there, including in the digital age, all your WhatsApp chats, all your iMessages, all these things. Remember the Fisher Island disharmony clause? You can't say naughty things about Fisher Island. What kind of dystopian bullshit is that, Peter? No First Amendment rights on Fisher Island. You can't say bad things. They've already kicked out a member for saying bad things about the association. I'm not a member of the association. Peter's not. I think that is complete horse shit. Maybe I'll never get invited back there. But it's fine because there's these fuel tanks there. I don't want to get infected by these fuel terminals anyway. So, Peter, what?
Wow. This is this is so fascinating. I love watching wealthy, ultra wealthy people get into pissing matches, because then it comes down to simply principle. So they'll die on that hill basically because they want to prove a point. So this should get really interesting. So just a couple points. One, the county's in the best spot possible. Related in the Chicago group, they got their cash parked in here. The fact that eminent domain came up means the deal is dead. Nobody's going to take them out whatsoever. So the county has basically, they got the trump card. The county's got the cards on this one because nobody will venture to take them out. What'll probably happen is Related in the Chicago group will probably just a little vig based on whatever it is they paid if the county decides to step it up. They're probably going to run out the clock on them whatsoever. Point number 2. Port of Miami, we said it before, get rid of the cargo. It's not big enough. Send the cargo to Port Everglades.
All cruises.
Make it all cruises. Make the internal part of Port Dodge Island, which is named after the captain, or one of the captains used to spend a lot of time over there when they were judging it out. Make it a destination site so that when we have parties, instead of having to go to Ocean Drive, you could have it there. You could have the cruises coming in.
That
Bring
would
in
be
like
so
downtown
cool,
Disney.
Peter.
Yeah, get rid of the cargo. You're not making any money on the cargo. What are they doing? They're driving gantry. Are they moving gantry cranes? Or taking boxes off TEUs, 20-foot equivalent. You're not making any money on that. The guys driving the semis into downtown Miami. Now they're taking the tunnel. Before they used to come up right up
The
Biscayne
tunnel's cool,
Boulevard.
though.
Yeah, but you connect to the chassis gets connected to the TEU, which is 20-foot equivalent, and then they take it out. There's no money made there. You got a couple people. It's not a real like wealthy type of business. Now, when they're talking about the numbers, they're talking about valuations. How much of that is actually staying here? It's coming here. It's getting transshipped somewhere else. Almost like when you're clearing customs or you're in transit, you're catching a connecting flight. Same type of thing. They could make a lot more money if they brought in more cruises on the bottom side. They turned the whole thing into some sort of downtown Disney, downtown Miami type of thing where you had events. It could be great. The Fisher Island people would be pissed off as can be because there'd always be bright lights on. There'd always be music. There'd be all kinds of stuff going on. So that would actually be a lot of fun. But the part that you can't actually comment and speak out against the association, I just find that to be so fitting. In this political environment, this is so fitting and good to the member who got kicked out. Also sounds like Dubai. As the Iranians are shooting missiles over to Dubai, some of the Brits and the expats are there. They're recording it. They're posting it. And what's happening? They're getting arrested. What is it about those people with a lot of money that they're so sensitive? Why are they so sensitive, Daniel? I do not understand.
Clutching my pearls, as you say it.
I love this, Daniel. This entire drama, this is excellent, excellent, excellent drama. Because everybody in there's got an attitude. Everybody's got cash, and it should get fun.
Well, what's the real estate angle with this, Pete? Because I know you track condos exclusively, and you have your finger really on the pulse. Is this news going to hurt the already quite slow Fisher Island condo market?
I think what's probably going to happen is, first of all, the Fisher Island condo market is it's non-existent. If you go ahead and you take a look at pending sales versus active listings, nothing's actually going under contract. Now they might say on the pre-construction side stuff is moving, but I can tell you nothing is under contract at this point. We just pulled the numbers this week. Listings is like 25, 35, something like that, with zero pending sales. Now, in terms of the development, I really seem to think that this might just have been a play from the beginning, just to go ahead and try
to get some quick cash
out
from the county.
Yeah, or do some kind of trade, some kind of quid pro quo. Russell Galbert is a very intelligent guy. He understands how things work. For him to get involved in it, and George Perez as well, he understands it. The Chicago group, they needed somebody down here basically who could walk them through. They needed a chaperone, if you will. So to get those two involved, it sounds like you'd be able to deal with City Miami Beach, deal with the county, deal with anything you wanted to do. So to me, it just sounds like a land play or something where they could pledge this. I don't want to say Sea Aquarium on the way to Virginia Key, but it sounds like there's more to this than simply putting up a couple condos and remediating. Daniel, let me repeat that: remediating those old school fuel tanks. I'm sure everything below there is clean, just like every time they tear down a
just
gas
like
station.
Mel Reese.
It's all clean. It's not going to be a problem right in the water. It's not a big deal. Listen, the best thing that could probably happen to these developers is the county takes them out and they deal with the remediation costs. Maybe that's why the county shut them down to begin with. Never know.
Well, I mean, Jimmy Morales resigned for this. And then and Heidi Webb, the other executive for this, and then the interim director who came in to replace her lasted like a day and a half. Okay, it was like 10 days, I think. But seriously, nobody can keep a job over here. This is the worst job to have in Miami right now. There is no winning here.
Yeah, the developers are jammed up because nobody will touch this property now unless they're buying it for pennies on the dollars. The county, they probably didn't want it because of possible remediation or anything else like that. Fisher Island's pissed off because A, you got controversy, B, you got people bitching and moaning, and C, you got these fuel tanks that are still there, and people are trying to say that this is the most expensive real estate in the country.
You're selling $90 million condos next to probably this waste site what it is effectively. I mean, I don't want to call a spade, but I mean, bunker fuel is not really great. You know what bunker fuel is, Peter? I mean, it's at room temperature, it's a solid.
Well, I was going to say, it's like, does that come out of like the Orinoco in Venezuela? You know, Venezuela produces all that real heavy oil.
This is the byproduct of all the refined stuff.
Nice.
It's the dregs. It's the bottom of your little dime baggie.
So
you don't know what that is. I don't know what that is either.
So really, it's kind of like once you've deep fried something, everything left at the end. Exactly.
So are you all in for seating disharmony on Fisher Island? I'm a buy. This is great. I don't have a dog in this race. I'm not a cruiser. I do have a dog in this race. I'm a constituent down here. I'm a tax-paying constituent. I pay all my taxes, and I want the county to be able to operate and to get its GDP. And Port Miami is very important to this. But all of this infighting is just, guys. I'm going to bring popcorn next week. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring popcorn next week because this is just too good to not pay attention to.
It is fantastic. Hey, Daniel, as a hybrid, maybe the workaround is, why don't they hire a bunch of those emergency response little boats? Somebody goes out sailing in Biscayne Bay or something, they run out of gas. These little boats will pull up. I think they call them sea tow or something. Why don't you just get a bunch of those? Have a fleet of those. Maybe they can tap into the Iranians, see where they buy their boats from, just fill them all up with fuel, and then next time one of these cargo tanks comes through so Fisher Island can have more condos.
Aye, Peter with his ideas. I love him. That's what we do here on Buy, Sell, Hold. We think out of the box. I'm a buy. He's a buy. That's our show. It is Friday, July 31st. We're in the last month of summer, or second to last month of summer, but I just count August as the last month. We are getting into the busiest time of hurricane season, even though it's an El Nino year and we haven't heard much. Hopefully we stay lucky with that. But with that, folks, we will see you next Friday as we do every Friday at 4 p.m.-ish Eastern Time. Ciao, everybody. Thanks.
Oye, Miami, the monkey.